golfer?
He was, yeah.
Yeah, that's what he said. He goes, and he just complimented you up and down, by the way.
Oh.
I just thought it's nice to hear that from people because you normally don't hear it. So
No, yeah.
you need to hear it.
Thank you, yeah.
So
yeah, no, he's a
like,
great guy.
Is he?
Yeah.
He comes across that way
Yeah,
too.
yeah, exactly.
So easy to ask for things and stuff like that. Yeah, he was they've been the most helpful. I mean, everyone that we had volunteer and stuff has been helpful, but he was even more.
Yeah,
so.
I can imagine. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Hey, Robin, how are you?
Good.
Cubs game. But you know what, if we run out of questions, are you okay?
Yeah, I suppose so.
I know you always bring your own, right? Just brought the one I had, just in case. Brought a button.
I have it. I love yours. And then I brought stuff just same as yours. I just fill it out first.
I got another water for you, just in case you need one, you never know.
Thank you very much. Nice to have you with me. So, a couple things. I think you might have signed a document that's agrees to but all of the previous forms, they have given us a 1 minute, 2 minute opening, 2 minute closing. But they have found questions that each of them have, so they decided to do 2 minutes for each up to 2 minutes. Well, there are two, but unless they. Oh, you're going to take it next week. Like a power. I actually have. Mike, you're up. Very good. So this, I've got a order. Who goes first?
She said the questions here last 2 minutes.
And it is Taft.
Okay.
Okay, so you make sure. Go first on one step, they will go second on the closing statement. Second on the opening statement, you go first.
Second.
Second on the closing statement, first on the okay, perfect. All right, let's see. You got about 5 minutes.
Oh. Can't start right now, I guess. I'm just kidding.
So we should sign this.
I'm gonna throw this out to the back with my wife.
Yeah, okay.
That's
26.
Are you all right over there by yourself? Or do you want to help? You should be able to. Okay, then, Dave, since you're going to go first, you will also answer the first question first.
Okay.
Okay, and then we'll just go back and forth.
All right.
Sure.
Hello.
Good evening. How are you all?
Good. How's it going, sir?
Cork, how are you?
Wonderful.
Mr. Taylor, how are you?
Fine,
Hi,
fine.
Robin.
How are you, Lee?
Good.
Let's see. I'm trying to figure out who to know. I'll just
you want to? Okay. Do you want to put it up on top here? Would that be better, or doesn't matter?
It might be in your way. If that's not gonna offend anybody, then
Won't offend me.
you can do it like this. I can sort of make it less intrusive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And is that Landon back there, do you know? I'll go ask him.
Sure.
So I can make faces.
There you go. Good.
Okay. I have room up here.
Mr. Taylor, Mr. Cook.
Hello.
Good evening. Weather's nice tonight.
Good evening, yes. A little chilly,
Not
but
too bad.
I think we're done with the rain mostly.
I think so. I think so. I don't have to do
Dave, it's Cork, it's not Cook.
Correct.
Cork, okay. That's what I thought, but when did,
I've heard variations enough times that I don't bother to correct people anymore.
well, you might want people to have the correct,
Well,
In this instance.
they'll see it on the ballot.
yeah, there you go.
So they can mispronounce it all they want.
Oh, there you go. That's right. That's right.
That one's on.
It's not on at the moment.
Testing, is that on?
Yeah.
How about this one?
Yep.
Perfect.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay. Good evening. Thank you all for being here. We have a lot of competition with other things going on around the community and in other parts of the country, like Cubs game. And I'm hoping they win. I don't care. I've been a Cubs fan my whole life. Okay. My name is Lee Clancy. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Linn County, and the League is a non-profit volunteer organization which neither supports nor opposes any candidate or political party. The League encourages citizen participation in government and is open to any citizen 16 years of age and older. This forum is part of our voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions at the upcoming elections. And we hope that over the course of this program, you will learn more about the candidates and what they hope to do for our state, our county, and maybe even our city. So, I'd like you to welcome a candidates forum between Democrat Todd Taylor and Libertarian Dave Cork, who are running for Iowa House District 70. I will start by explaining some procedures for the forum, which each candidate has received ahead of time. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 2 minutes to answer each question, and 2 minutes for a closing statement. And opening and closing statements will be done in the following order. Mr. Cork will start with the opening statement first, and Mr. Taylor will be second, and then we will reverse the order on closing statements. The timekeepers are sitting in the first row, and when there's a minute left on your speaking time, the timekeeper will hold up a card that says a minute, and then 30 seconds, and then 15 seconds. And please wrap up when you see the stop sign. If you continue to speak after the stop sign is held up, I will say thank you very much, and we will move on. Candidates will confine their statements and their responses to relevant issues and refrain from any personal attacks. We don't have that problem in Iowa. Candidates, the forum is being recorded in the back by Robin Cash of Neighborhood Network News, and will be available to watch at the lwvlynncounty.org website, and also the www.neighborhoodnetworknews.com websites. Also recording in the back is Landon Sheets from Pro Video, and his video of this forum will be streaming live on Pro Video's Facebook page. So if you know of people that couldn't make the forum tonight and are still undecided about which candidate they would like, for whom they would like to vote, please have them, direct them to one of these websites. If you haven't already and you have one, would you please turn your cell phone off or put it on vibrate now? And if at any time during the forum you cannot hear me or either of the candidates, please let us know by raising your hand. We request that you treat both candidates fairly, so if you would not mind remaining quiet throughout the forum, no clapping, cheering, or calling out, with the exception that after their closing statements, you may clap for both candidates if you wish. You are encouraged to submit questions for the candidates on the provided pieces of paper. They look like this. And questions must be addressed to both candidates and must apply to issues or qualifications for their particular office. Raise your hand if you'd like another piece of paper or have your question collected, and a league panel member will review the questions for legibility, clarity, and applicability to both candidates. I will read as many questions as time allows, and sometimes I may combine similar questions in an effort to cover as many topics as we possibly can. So, with that, we will begin with the opening statements, and Mr. Cork will begin. You have 2 minutes.
Evening, folks. I am Dave Cork, and I'm going to tell you right up front, I don't have a prepared opening. I don't have a prepared closing. The reason behind this is because I'm not a politician. I don't prepare speeches. I speak from the heart. I speak extemporaneously. I'm running because, like many folks in Iowa, in our nation, I'm tired of politics as usual. Now I want to be very clear about this. I'm not directing this at Todd specifically. I've seen Todd in a couple instances, and I genuinely think that his heart is in the right place. I also think, however, that one of the reasons we're having so many problems is because there are no term limits. I think 20 years in office is too long. I think it's time to give somebody else a shot. I have tried in vain to contact state legislators, federal legislators about various issues over the years. I'm not going to say that I know everything, but I care and I'm involved. And overwhelmingly, the response that I receive is either silence or a canned response. So I came to the conclusion that my only real choice to say that I'm doing everything I can do to make this country a better place is to throw my hat in the ring, and I'll yield the rest of my time.
Okay, were all of you able to hear Mr. Cork without using the microphone? Anybody not?
More volume?
Okay,
I can do that.
okay, or you may use the microphone if it's hard on your voice. Okay, and now, Mr. Taylor.
Oh, thank you. I do have some prepared comments, but also I speak a little bit of prepared comments and off the cuff. Todd Taylor, State Representative, running for re-election. I hope I can earn your vote, those of you who are in the district. Welcome back to Taft. I was a Taft Tiger in 1978, also a Jefferson Jayhawk, and it's great to be back here and have the League of Women Voters provide this opportunity for us to talk to the citizens here. I know that a few years back, we all heard Governor Tom Vilsack say he wanted more Iowans, younger Iowans, and better paid Iowans. And from that, I believe with the concept that still resonates with us today. We want to make Iowa a great place to live, work, raise a family, and retire. And those are the things that I think guide the things I want to do in office and things that we have yet to do. I'm a student of political science, state representative from the West Side for a number of years. Basically, the other thing I want to do is I want to write good legislation and unwrite bad legislation or stupid legislation, and there are plenty of both. I have been able to be in this role because I stand on the shoulders of the people that have come before me. One I'd like to mention is a long-serving state senator, Wally Horn. He was a teacher and a teacher of mine, and he still is a mentor today. We need to make education our top priority, and I'll be happy to get into those details as we go in through the questions. I'm assuming, I certainly hope, that some of the questions will be on education. And I'll be happy to answer and go back and forth on questions that people want to. So this is your forum, and you can ask the questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, we're going to get right into it. So, Mr. Cork, you are going to answer the first question first, and it has to do with Medicaid. Do you believe that privatization of Medicaid is in the best interests of those that receive the services?
You know, the Libertarians are going to skewer me for this, but I think that Medicaid's a good deal. Specifically when it comes to Branstad privatizing the mental health stuff, I think it was an absolute mistake. When I was going out getting signatures so I could appear on the ballot, I spoke to a woman who actually does administration at the state level and found out that the state has 4% overhead. There's no way that insurance companies with a profit motive can do it for less money. That's my take on it.
Okay. Mr. Taylor.
I couldn't disagree more with the governor on his desire to privatize Medicaid. The Medicaid privatization is not working as it was billed, as it was intended. He has told us, the governor and his people, particularly the director of Human Services, told us that they would save money. $51 million was the original dollar figure. It has not saved $51 million. Any dollar that it might save so far under the system that it has is because they've denied or taken away services from people, in most cases the most frail or the elderly recipients of the Medicaid services and dollars. The companies that have come in and bid on them, there was a big complicated process to get them in to the system. They fixed a system that really wasn't broken. So this was, as they often say, a solution in search of a problem. Doesn't mean we couldn't make things more efficient or try to streamline some things, but what the governor did in response was privatize, and then he told us he was going to save us money. There were some, obviously, delays getting it started, and the service providers, unfortunately, have had so many difficulties getting dollars reimbursed for the services that they deliver to the people that need it. They've had to, in some cases, take out bank loans just to make ends meet. I'm certainly not an expert by any means in this, but I've seen and I've heard the Oversight Committee is trying very desperately to keep the governor in check. It's not working. The governor's just wrong.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor, this one will be for you first. You mentioned it in your opening remarks. Do you believe that Iowa is underfunding our schools?
Well, part of the problem with the funding for education goes like this. At Cedar Rapids Jefferson right now, there are kids that do not have a first hour class. The reason why they don't have a first hour class is because you can't put a 34th kid into any one of those classes that's left out there. The reason that's the case is because we have consistently, in the last 6 years, underfunded and not given dollars on time consistently and with enough lead time. We have not followed the law in the legislature that requires us to put forward the education budget 30 days after the governor submits his budget for the ensuing, following school year. Because we have done that, that has caused delays in school funding and delays, and in fact, 15 teachers at the high school level in Cedar Rapids have been laid off. I've got statistics here from all over the state, but we'll talk about Cedar Rapids right now. Cedar Rapids Jefferson has 15 fewer teachers because of that. And that is severely underfunding education. When we have the money, we should, what the law is designed to do, which the House Republicans in particular have failed to do this, is make it predictable, make the funding stream predictable, and make it adequate to get the results that we want to do. We're supposed to do that, and we're supposed to do it in ahead of time, and we have failed to do that. There's no teeth in the law that prevent them or give them any problems if they fail to deliver on that. That is a ripple effect, and that is affecting education. I see some campaign ads across town that so-and-so voted for $275 million. That doesn't mean anything to me. What really means something to me is the results. And if we've got kids that don't have a first hour class because we've laid off teachers because we can't put a 34th kid in the classroom, that's a problem. So I want results, and I'll spend the money, vote to spend the money that we need to do that.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Cork?
I'll let her have a second
I
to
know,
reset her time.
yes, I think that's a good idea.
All good? Okay, I agree with the premise that we need results. Problem is, who is dictating the results that are required? Now, I'm going to back up a step further. We talk about education in Iowa, but the first thing that we need to consider is the fact that we're partially hamstrung at the federal level because the federal government is throwing down a lot of mandates that we have no choice but to abide by. That in and of itself is objectionable enough. Now, to take it a step further, we've got the state that's doing the same thing. I think it's kind of arrogant on the part of our legislators to assume that they can mandate and dictate our children into success from on high. They're too far removed from the problem. The people that should be dictating the results are the counties, are the communities, and the teachers. The state needs to get out of the way and let the teachers teach. We get rid of the laws, we can free up administrators to teach. And that's what it's about.
Okay. So, Mr. Cork, this is for you. We have 3 questions here on the minimum wage, okay? I'm going to try to see if we can talk about it all. Should the state raise the minimum wage? What should it be? And should anyone be excluded? The tipped minimum wage, for those who work for tips, is $4.35 an hour. Do you think this is fair for employees who get tips? And would you support eliminating the discrepancy between tipped and standard minimum wage?
Well, I absolutely agree that we're not paying our unskilled labor enough. The problem isn't a minimum wage issue. The problem is a corporate issue. What's going on is that we, as a state and as a country, have made welfare, food stamps, what have you, a de facto corporate subsidy. We allow it ourselves. We allow corporations to pay individuals so little money that they have to have food stamps. My take on it is we should take a different approach. If a company is not paying a living wage, we should punish the company, not just artificially do a minimum wage. Because if we just artificially do a minimum wage, basically what's going to happen is supply and demand is going to kick in, and 10 years down the road, approximately, we'll be back where we are now. I intuitively don't like the idea of tipped employees being paid less, but straight up, I don't have an answer off the cuff for that. I would be open to listen to what people have to say. I would absolutely be open to recommendations.
Okay, Mr. Taylor.
I strongly support raising the minimum wage. I was proud to have voted for that in 2007. It was House File 1. It kind of morphed into something else, but it was the first bill that we pushed through, and I'm proud of that vote. At the time, in 2007, the statistics showed that raising the minimum wage would help about 115,000 Iowans. Now it's well over 150,000 Iowans if we were to raise it. I don't know that I am interested in I think it would be a bifurcated wage rate for the tipped folks. I don't know a lot of details about that. I think we basically need to, like Robert Kennedy would say, a rising tide rises all boats. So let's not have too many ways to chop it up again. And I think that, all of the fears that people said in 2007 when Iowa did it last, that it was going to raise the cost of a hamburger outside of the reach of people, none of those fears came true. None of the layoffs and the job exodus happened. It did help 115,000 Iowans estimated at that time. And one thing I really like on this is two things real quick. I gotta watch my time though. We've got 3 large counties and a 4th is considering it right now. And now because of that, Governor Branstad says, hey, legislature, if you send it to me, I'll consider signing it. It's well past being needed and since 2007. And I saw just in the paper the other day, the neighboring states. And the other thing that I like is, oftentimes unions are in favor of raising the minimum wage, and not because they themselves might get a raise, because they often have collective bargaining agreements that have a higher start wage. So it's not self-serving. They're trying to do that to help the community and to help those people in the community that need that boost. And those folks that get that dollar increase, they'll spend it.
Okay, thank you. All right, and Mr. Taylor, you will answer first on this one. We've got 2 questions regarding public employee, the right to public employees should have, whether or not they should have the right to collective bargaining. How do you believe you support that?
Oh yes, absolutely. I definitely support Iowa's public sector collective bargaining law. I think that some of the things in it's called Chapter 20. Chapter 20 could be expanded, and it would be a benefit to employees, employers, taxpayers, the community, and we almost got some of that done a few years ago and didn't get it all the way done. So I could see also expanding those rights. What we've seen in a neighboring state, Wisconsin, is that because of different things in their state government, they eliminated collective bargaining for all intents and purposes. I think that is horrible, and I think that that is something that we may see in Iowa if we don't, keep it strong. So I say keep collective bargaining strong, public sector, and I say expand it where necessary. And I think it is, it's good service for the people, for the taxpayers, and the results to the. They're again talking about results. The results to the community is really a valuable return, such as teachers, public employees at the county level, the state level, the city levels, and all across the state.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cork.
Well, I'm not a union guy, but I do like the idea of unions. If you look at your history lessons, before unions came into be, a few people held everything and most of us held nothing. I think that the state workers should absolutely be allowed to form unions to the same extent that any one of us should. How much legislation we do for this, I don't have a direct answer. Basically, my take on this is that the unions have been on a pendulum. We started out with no unions, we got unions, they got strong, they got greedy, they paid the price, the population turned their back on the unions. And now, the pendulum has swung too far the other way. There are too few people that have too much and the rest of us have too little. The pendulum needs to swing back towards the middle a little bit. My take on this, you guys probably have figured out by now, I'm not a pure play libertarian. I support protecting the little guy from the government and from greedy corporations. That's my take about it. I'm here to preserve individual rights and allow individuals to take responsibility for their actions.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Cork, this question is for you first. Actually, there are 3 questions that are very similar, and they're all about water quality. What are your views on funding to clean up our waterways? Will you vote for water quality in Iowa, for example, the 5/8 cents increase in sales tax? And basically, who should pay to clean up Iowa's streams and waterways? The taxpayers? The polluters? Who?
Oh, the polluters. Absolutely. I mean, from my perspective, it's a no-brainer. You know, if I crosswalk, can I expect Todd to pay the fine for me? That's not fair. That's not reasonable. So why is it reasonable that a polluter can go out and pollute and the population is expected to pick it up? No, it's the polluters that should pay for it. And in the case of leased land, for example, I think it should be the landowner that's ultimately responsible, because the landowner is the individual who dictates, I'm going to lease my land to this farmer. Therefore, he is the de facto landlord. And if his tenant is not living up to the obligation of keeping our water clean, ultimately it's the landlord's responsibility. Now, there is one exception to where I would say that the state should pick up the tab, and that is if it's state-owned land that's polluting. I mean, the state kind of got itself there. We are the state, therefore we need to get ourselves out of it. I'm finished.
Okay. Mr. Taylor.
Water quality obviously is ultra critical to everybody. You can't live without it. So we got to protect it. And the question before us is how we do that. I heard the governor yesterday when he was campaigning for some of his friends here in town say it went through 3 committees and then it failed, and you know, legislature's bad for not doing it. Well, part of the problem was his proposal was to fund it from taking school infrastructure dollars that are designed to help remodel this room, say, or put those chairs in here, or the cafeteria, whatever, and then put it for water quality. So that's really part of the problem of the governor's most recent proposal, was that his funding source. So I do think that we should maximize our dollars from the local, state, and federal levels, blend those together. If that does result in increasing that sales tax, then 3/8, then a portion of that will go towards water quality. We have a chance this election to do some of the local funding on our ballot this year. And the bottom line is we need to have a blend of putting the money where it's supposed to go. Don't take it from school infrastructure dollars, but put it on, if we have taxes oriented towards water quality, they need to go towards water quality. If that's protecting the watershed, or maybe building a berm, or using biofilters, then those are things that we can do. We can add buffer strips to eliminate or reduce, if not eliminate, pesticide runoff. I think this morning we had a 1-inch rain in a rather short period of time. That kind of thing on the farmland is going to impact the water. But if we put a lot of nitrogen to get a bright green lawn, that's going to impact the water. So that you have to go towards who's polluting. But it's a funding mix.
Okay. Mr. Taylor, how do you plan to help with mental health funding and assistance as it is badly needed all over Iowa?
We've done a poor job in Iowa in terms of where we put our funding for mental health. I don't think there's a lot of dispute on that we need to focus on that. Years ago, we tried to get legislation for mental health parity for health insurance plans. And that would make sure that when someone had a broken ankle, they got their ankle fixed. And somebody had an issue with their mental health issues, they would get their mental health issues fixed. That didn't work. I mean, people didn't want that. The powers that be decided that, no, we weren't going to do that. Unfortunately, the governor has decided to close a couple of institutions. We have 4 institutions in Iowa for mental health, and he's closed 2 of them. And all that does is impact families that have to go to see their loved ones that are in facilities and have to drive farther. And I'm happy to be part of a lawsuit against that action from the governor from doing that. But we need to raise the tax dollars necessary to fund the programs to deliver the services. It's as simple as that. And I think in general, people say, oh, taxes are bad. Politicians talk about taxes, tax and spend, this and that. People get it. They get that if you raise a tax dollar here and you spend it on something that the people want and you get the results you want, it's all good. Now, if you raise it for school infrastructure and then tell them later you want to put it on water quality, that's a problem. So we've got to talk about it. I think the Board of Regents has raised tuition, but one of the things in their article about doing that was they're going to have a mental health tax, basically to help fund employee assistance and student assistance programs at the universities. People get it. If you raise it for a certain purpose and you spend it on that, that's fine. That's what we need to do, and we're failing on that in Iowa.
Thank you. Mr. Cork.
I'm a big fan of mental health parity. And with that said, I'm going to straight up admit that I don't have all of the answers that is going to fix a mental health problem. I would like to start by at least rolling things back to where they were. I would like to see mental health parity. Beyond that, I'm going to defer to Todd. He's got a lot more experience with dealing with the entire state budget than I do, so he can spout facts and figures significantly more quickly and effectively than I can. I am going to say this, though. I'm a quick study. You give me a little time, and I can come up with an answer, but I can't promise you the answer today, and I'm sorry for that.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Cork. This has to do with funding for education. There are 2 questionnaires that basically have very similar questions. If the legislature continues to reduce property taxes for businesses, how can we improve funding for education? And is a 1.25% increase in funding adequate for our public schools?
It bothers me that individuals pay more taxes than corporations. My take on it is, you're looking at this from a very narrow perspective. You're saying, should corporations, you're talking 1.25%, 1.75%, 1.75% here and there. You got to look at this from a more systemic approach. Basically, my take is that individuals and businesses don't have parity. I would like to see fairness. I would like to see businesses and people pay approximately the same tax level. And I had something else, but it just completely flew out of my head, so I'll just be quiet now.
Okay, Mr. Taylor.
The education funding, I would say, you fund it first and you build the rest of the budget around it. So, and that's the idea behind the law of you've got to put forward your future education budget for giving the indication of how you're going to, where you're going to go with your school funding to the schools. Give them stability. Thank you. That's the word I was thinking of. Give them stability, and do it in advance, and do it the first thing that you do in the legislative session, because what we've seen is, particularly in the House Republicans, which I can speak to, they would say, well, we have very small amount of new monies out there. We have a lot of built-ins. to the budget, okay? Well, if you have that, you're gonna never find what you need to get the results you want in education. So I think the short answer is that you fund education first and build the rest of it out. I think there was another part to the question about, what about if you gave too many property tax cuts away?
If you continue to reduce property taxes for businesses, how can you improve funding for education?
Okay, yeah, and I would, if we look at taxes, you look at property taxes, you gotta decide how you're gonna spend the money, where it's gonna go. Again, if you wanna have an ambulance service, you raise the tax for that, you pay it for that, that's good. In property taxes, we gave a huge property tax cut to entities, some of whom didn't ask for it and didn't need it. And that would be like the Walmarts of the world. I do think that I do favor some small business targeted tax cuts, but that is secondary to the funding for education. So I think you have to, like I say, fund education first and build the rest of the budget around it. We have the money. We don't have to dip into reserves. We don't have to raise taxes to do that. But we got to be careful about cutting taxes where it's not needed, such as large corporations. By the way, I voted against that, but it came along.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor, switching gears. This regards medical marijuana. Will you work to fully legalize its use by all as prescribed by a physician?
Yeah, absolutely. This last legislative session, toward the end, we thought that we were working with a bipartisan solution to a medical cannabis scenario that was going to have appropriate regulations, appropriate number of laboratories or pharmacies or outlets, whatever the word was, about 12 of them around the state. And it was going to have a rather extensive list of ailments, Parkinson's, epilepsy, and many, many more. Then, unfortunately, before it was all over, the bill became one depository, one repository, single access with a prescription, and only for 3 or 4 ailments or diseases or horrible circumstances. And this isn't the kind of stuff that people can use to get high on. So it's not that. It's really to help stop seizures for, in many cases, children, in many cases, that have 500 seizures in a day. And this particular extract of this particular plant was going to help solve that and give them a quality of life that they, for their whole entire life, didn't have. And unfortunately, we did not pass a bill that was worth anything. A couple years ago, we did, and it was like, you could have it, you could have cannabidiol oil, but you can possess it, but you can't get it. So you got to go across state lines to get it. It was super complicated. It was unnecessary. So we really did need to make a fix. We had the chance to do it. It was going to be a bipartisan thing, and it failed. And that is something that I will continue to work on. Be happy to extend my hand across the aisle to work with those folks to get it done. And it's possible. We can do it.
Okay, Mr. Cork.
Oh, I absolutely support medical marijuana. It's been demonstrated absolutely to my satisfaction that it works as a medicine. Personally, I think we should take it a step further. Again, remember, libertarian guy here. Individual rights, individual freedoms, individual responsibility. From my perspective, marijuana should be legal in the state of Iowa because basically you're criminalizing behavior that there is no reason to criminalize. It has been scientifically demonstrated that alcohol and tobacco are more damaging to the human body than marijuana is. With that being the case, it's counterintuitive to have marijuana remain illegal, yet have tobacco and alcohol remain legal. I just don't get it.
Okay. Mr. Cork, should Social Security be privatized, and what should the age limit be for achieving Social Security?
Well, those are federal questions. I don't understand how the state has any impact on that.
I'm just the asker.
No, I don't think Social Security should be privatized. Now, is the government doing a good job of managing that money? No. The problem is that if you privatize it, you're breaking a promise to too many people. The government already made a promise. The government should be expected to fulfill this promise. Now, to get a little more complex in the Social Security thing, we all know that it's going to be insolvent if something doesn't change. And we all know that the federal government has kicked the can down the road. They've been completely irresponsible about it. And that's because they're all afraid of losing their jobs as opposed to doing what's right. I personally would rather do what's right, even if it means I don't get elected, even if it means I don't get reelected sometime down the road. I think that raising the age is a necessary evil. And I'm saying this as a person who's not going to get to retire at 65, period. I also think that there's probably going to have to be some means testing. And I'm saying this as somebody who is going to retire comfortably enough based on my current projections and my current donations to my 401k that I will get the short end of that stick. But it's more important that we take care of the people that need to be taken care of than it is for me to get my extra dollar when I turn 70.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
Well, obviously, Social Security and the regulations therein are a federal issue, but I'd be happy to answer and give my take on it. I think that we want to make sure that it remains solvent, and we make sure that we deliver on the promises that Social Security should deliver on. And if that means we have to raise the age, I wouldn't want to raise it more than a couple of years, and I would want to do that in far, far out years so that people who are paying into the system now and they have a belief that they were going to retire at 65, that was going to work. So we'd have to, whatever the opposite of front end load that, you have to back end load that. So you do that over a long period of time. I also think that in terms of just retirement income for people, that they need to have a blend. You know, we always heard Tom Harkin talk about a three-legged stool, and to be Social Security, your own private investments, maybe a 401k and your own savings, and also maybe a pension or some other things that you've earned and saved over the years. So you can't just rely on just Social Security. So I want to make sure that the promise is delivered on, and be happy to work on that to the extent that we can in the legislature.
Okay. Again, taking a little different tack. This is for Mr. Taylor. Will you oppose legislation to liberalize Iowa's gun laws?
It probably needs to be more specific. There's certain things that I think I can assume what liberalize means, and from the questioner, certain things I'm willing to do, certain things I'm not willing to do. If it increases safety, I'm in favor of it. If it takes away guns, I'm not in favor of it, except for if it's someone who's a domestic abuser or a felon, which is current law. So I don't want to erode current law that way. So maybe if we wanted to be more specific with the question, or if somebody else talked about what liberalization they were talking about, I'm open to hearing what the specific issue is.
Okay, Mr. Cork?
Oh, I can't add anything to that. We're totally in agreement.
Okay. All right. Then, Mr. Cork, will you work to see that Cedar Rapids gets a casino?
Will I work to see that it gets a casino? I think that we should get out of the way of the gaming. The gaming board shouldn't exist. From my perspective, it should be a simple law of supply and demand. It should be up to the citizens overall to determine whether or not we have a casino. Now, hey, we didn't want a casino, then we wanted it, and then we were told we couldn't have it. How much do we want it, really? If we, as a population overall, decide that we really want a casino, like I said, supply and demand should dictate that we get the casino, not the State Gaming Commission.
Okay, Mr. Taylor.
Well, let's see. I think my philosophy on that goes like this. I'm not anti-gambling, but I am for appropriate regulation on gambling. So and I agree with, as Dave said, kind of the back and forth how it happened. I think that I would like to see a regulatory system that goes like this, that the Racing and Gaming Commission decides that, yes, there's going to be a license issued. Then you go out and find investors, and then you go to the public and put it on the ballot, and then they vote for it. If they vote it down, it's done. If you don't have the investors, it's done. And obviously, in my scenario, if you don't have the Racing and Gaming Commission saying yes, it's done. And what happened this last time was backwards. The people said yes, they found the investors, then they got the Racing and Gaming Commission to say, to ask their question, and they said no. So I think the people should have the ultimate decision. And let's not put it before them until the regulatory environment's there and the investors are there, and maybe you have a place you're gonna put it and people can see it. I did support the one in Cedar Rapids with the caveat that it be smoke-free. I think that's one piece of one of my most proud votes over all of my years is the smoking ban. But we gave an exception to casinos. And so if we were gonna have a casino in Cedar Rapids, I was definitely wanting that to be smoke-free. And I think that made it different or unique enough that we could have those regulators review that differently. Didn't work. It's probably not going to be in Cedar Rapids now because based on the current law, which does protect the monopoly. But I'm not opposed to working towards that. Again, I want the people to decide. And we'd have to change the regulatory environment to do that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor, Iowa's prison population is disproportionately filled with people of color. What would you do to improve this inequity?
Absolutely. I would say that there's a lot we can do on this. Sentence structure is often skewed against a person of color. I know that we have good judges that try to do the right thing, but we need to give them the tools to put discretion back in to their sentencing guidelines. Only certain violent offenses should have the mandatory minimums. And often we see that folks are incarcerated longer than they needed to be. We do have so part of it is sentencing and giving judges ability to look at the overall crime that they're sentencing and then try to balance that on a racial basis. Some of the inequities in powder cocaine versus crack, they often break down on racial lines, and then that also impacts our sentencing issues. I think that we need to do a comprehensive change because our prison population has gone down a little bit, but partly because in the last, say, 5-10 years, partly that's because of that we classify our inmates differently. I am the ranking member and once was the chair of the Justice System Budget, so I do know an awful lot about this. But I think that our staffing in our prisons is off, and our sentencing is off. But to the question, there's a lot we can do in our sentencing guidelines, power with judges, and the things that we have mandatory minimums on.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Cork?
I also think we need to get rid of mandatory minimums. It's for a slightly different reason, though. I'm a big fan of the whole checks and balances system of our government. And the problem with mandatory minimums is that you're taking too much discretion away from the judicial branch in general. And that's my root cause for wanting to get rid of mandatory minimums across the board. A large portion of the problem with too many minorities being in jail is that we criminalize behavior that doesn't need to be criminalized. We need to repeal victimless crime laws. Again, I'm going to use marijuana as an example. I don't understand why a guy, whether he's black, white, yellow, well, women as well, I don't understand why they shouldn't be able to sit at home and have some marijuana when we already allow that right for alcohol and tobacco. So if there are fewer illegal activities, there will be fewer people arrested across the board. Give us the opportunity to act like adults. We as a society should be smart enough by this time to understand that there are two things you cannot regulate out of existence. You cannot legislate morality, and you cannot legislate stupidity. By the way, as soon as you make something idiot-proof, they go out and make a better idiot.
Thank you. Kind of along the same lines, will you work to automatically restore voting rights to felons who have completed their punishment, and if not, why not?
Absolutely, unless it's voter fraud. I mean, it doesn't make sense that you should get your voter rights if you commit voter fraud. And I'm going to be very specific about why I want to restore voting rights to people who've, if you've completed your sentence, you've completed your sentence. That shouldn't continue to hang over your head. The other thing is that you have an increasingly large group of people who are disenfranchised. You have a smaller group of people who are making the decisions. And that's not what the American way is about.
Okay?
If you pay your fines and do your time, you should definitely be fully restored as a citizen to all your citizen rights, absolutely. Tom Vilsack, as I mentioned earlier, is a very thoughtful governor, and one of the things that he did through executive order was a blanket restoration for those that fit that category. And then that was challenged early on. I think it was in Muscatine, and there was a district court judge or a player over there in that case that argued that, well, what if the executive order goes away? You can't unring a bell. And that's true. That's very an interesting concept. So after Governor Vilsack did the restoration, it was via an executive order. So one of the very first acts of Terry Branstad when he came back as governor after being governor before, was to repeal that executive order. And then that did cause some outcry, and some of that outcry is, well, he put a new process into place. That process is cumbersome and it is not automatic. And it should be really, I'm not suggesting change the Constitution, take the governor's power for commutation out of the Constitution, but it really shouldn't be politicized through the governor's office. We should make it a state law, and quite frankly, I would go a step further and say ban the box. And so as to prevent someone from continually being punished or penalized for something they've done, that they've paid their time, and paid their fine, done their time many, many years ago. Preventing them from getting a job, I'd like to clean up some of the background check legislation, and I would allow certain exceptions. If you were a financial criminal, maybe you shouldn't ever work at a bank. If you're crimes against children, okay, you're not going to work at a daycare. But that doesn't mean you can't do plenty other good jobs that are out there that right now there are barriers that really shouldn't be in your way. It's going to take a bipartisan approach to fix that, and many other states are looking at that, banning the box, and then restoring voting rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Taylor, how do you plan to maintain Chapter 20?
Chapter 20, as I mentioned earlier, is a public sector collective bargaining law. I would, well, first of all, maintain it by, what happened in Wisconsin. The part that I'm worried about is it really did happen in Wisconsin, where they eliminated their equivalent up there. Collective bargaining is a law that took a long time to debate in the 70s to get into effect. I've done a lot of study on that. And each piece of the law is actually an amendment that took 36 legislative days in 1974 to put forth. Governor Bob Ray, Republican governor, and half Democratic, half Republican House and Senate split, they passed this law. The law works, and we need to honor the law and not, tinker with it and make it go away. The part that works is it's the give and the take, the push and the pull. The employee or organizations or unions on the one hand and the employer on the other hand, they don't all get what they want. There's a mechanism in place to where they can have a conversation, that they're required to have a conversation on certain topics, and they're prohibited from having a conversation on other topics, but then they sit down, they hammer it out, and it works. So I would keep it as it is, and in some cases, the topics that they talk about could be expanded to mirror the private sector, which would be terms and conditions of employment. Simple as that. That statement right there covers it. In Iowa, we have a list of like 17 finite things. So I would expand it actually, And there again, nobody gets everything they want. That's the beauty of it. It's the give and take, the push and the pull, the collective bargaining. So everybody gets something, and it would be valuable.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cork?
This guy, that's not fair. This guy's a union rep. How would I defend it? I really can't definitively answer that. I can't, because I am not educated enough to know exactly how it's under siege. So I'm not going to make up an answer. I'm going to admit my ignorance, which is something politicians tend to not do, by the way. So I should get some big kudos for that, really. Kudos. Thank you, man. What I will say, though, is that I'm going to reiterate that I believe that state employees should have the right to collectively bargain, just like private citizens have the right to collectively bargain. Beyond that, again, I'll plead ignorance and just stop before I put my foot in my mouth.
Okay. Mr. Cork, what are 3 things that you would seek to do to improve the lot of children in Iowa?
Wow. That's a really tough question. I like that. I know the clock's just ticking and I'm sitting here quietly. But part of the reason that I'm sitting here quietly is because, you know, I've lived in Iowa for a very long time. I was born in Kansas. I moved to Iowa when I was 12. I left and joined the Marine Corps, was gone for 6 years, and I voluntarily came back. I voluntarily came back to raise my children, and I'm raising my grandchild here as well. Well, I'm helping my daughter raise my grandchild. Cut and dried, I think Iowa's a really good place to live. You know, it would be nice to reduce poverty, but that's not just the government's job. It's the individual's job. I would like to wave a magic wand and make schools better. I would like to wave a magic wand and make the water cleaner. But it's not all the government's job. At some point, personal responsibility comes in. So, you know, maybe that's why I'm having a tough time answering this question, because I'm a firm believer in personal responsibility. So, giving my kids a good life, at the end of the day, that's on me. Giving my grandkids a good life, at the end of the day, that's on me. I'd like to think I've done a great job, but I'm sure that one of my kids would come up with a story about how I put him in the corner for too long.
Okay. And Mr. Taylor?
Well, I think my answer is going to go towards education. And it's from the earliest part, preschool. I remember speaking to the principal at Hoover School down the street here. And he told me that kids that had preschool were ready to learn. And kids that didn't have preschool, they had to spend maybe half of the first year learning some of the basics. The alphabet, tie your shoes, and stand in line and walk in a straight line and keep your hands to yourself, right? And so preschool is something that we put together, and we made it affordable and available, and that is also one of my proudest moments in voting over the years. And that helps kids get ready for school. I want to make sure that they have a hot lunch, because if you're hungry, you can't really learn, you know. So we need to make sure we have good nutrition. We can't put all of the effort on teachers when we need help from parents. Teachers are many times overwhelmed because the kids aren't really ready to learn. So we need to do what we need to do to make sure kids are ready to learn. And part of that is funding. We've talked about the funding, so I won't go there again. But also the concept of, you know, children grow up, so we want to give them access to good education to get good jobs. They don't all go to college. Those that do, we want to make it affordable. Those that don't, we want to make them maybe apprenticeship programs or other job, connect them to the skills to get jobs. And that is kind of like my thesis statement here for the kids. So use education as a tool to get them to have a good job, start early, and last all their life.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor, will you be an advocate and support legislation to increase organic farming in Iowa?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about organic farming. I think I'm going to say that I think I understand it to be, low pesticides or no pesticides, or low chemicals or no chemicals, that type of thing. I think that our farmers market is a good place to expand that. And in Cedar Rapids, we've done a good job with that, with tens of thousands of people come out every year to give organic farmers a market, because I know that my wife and I buy organic when we can at the farmers market, and that's an option. So we need to make it available to people. Was the first part on incentivizing?
No, it just, would you advocate and support?
Absolutely. I would advocate for organic farming expansion. Yep.
Okay, Mr. Cork.
Would I advocate it? Absolutely. I'm a big fan of the farmer's market too. Would I legislate it? No. Again, this goes back to the free market, the laws of supply and demand. Now, realistically speaking, organic should be less expensive. You're going to have a little bit more loss, but you're not paying all this money to throw all these chemicals on the food that you're producing. You're not injecting the hormones into the animals. It should be cheaper to produce, aside from the fact that you're going to have a little bit of loss. The big problem is actually a consumer issue. Organic stuff, hey, it's not as pretty as the stuff that you see at Hy-Vee. The tomatoes aren't perfect. They got the little wood spots in them. And what happens as a result is that we voluntarily don't buy them because we've been trained as a society to like all the pretty, perfect stuff. So this isn't something that you legislate. This goes back again to personal responsibility, legislating your own morality. You don't need to put on a coat if I get cold.
Okay. Mr. Cork, what do voters in your district believe are the most important for you to do in the upcoming session if you're elected?
Well, I've heard a lot of stuff about water quality, and I've heard a lot of stuff about education. There are other things that I don't hear as much, but I know that they're important to people in my district. I think that we need to get rid of civil asset forfeiture. You realize that the state has given law enforcement the power to take away your house, your car, your money, without ever charging you for a crime. There's no due process. You have to prove your innocence before you get it back if your assets are civilly seized. Our government is abusing eminent domain. You've all heard of the Bakken Pipeline by now. Our government chose winners and losers in that. They took away farmers' properties, and they didn't use it for public use. Eminent domain is designed for public use, like constructing roads, things that everybody gets to use. They took it away from one private person and gave it to one private company. They are picking winners and losers. I think that we need to get term limits in. I think that people care about that, even though it's not talked about frequently. And I think we need campaign finance reform. That's another topic that people talk about frequently, but not in a gargantuan forum, or a small forum for that matter. As far as campaign finance reform, by the way, I'm talking the walk here. I am neither soliciting nor accepting campaign contributions. My opponent, who's been in here for 20 years, has received almost $350,000 during his 20 years in office. He's received almost $35,000 in campaign donations this year. I have not received one penny from one person. I have spent a grand total of $20 out of my own pocket.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor.
Oh, well, first I have to respond. This is my first chance, I think, to respond on the term limit question. And I want to talk about, I've been in for 21 years. Got in a special election, so that's why I have an odd number than most people. It's an even number. So 21 years. I was first elected in 1995. The thing about term limits is, and I'm not a purist, right? I'm in favor of them for the executives, for the executive branch. The governor is like more than 150 times more powerful than a single legislator. And I'm okay with it on the federal level for the president. The reason why, and at first it'll sound self-serving because, hey, I've been in for 21 years. But the bottom line is on term limits is a legislator, I had to have a learning curve. And I have a great education and it started right here at Taft, right? And went to Jefferson. And you have to have a learning curve. So it takes a while before you learn the budget. I've been blessed to be on the Appropriations Committee my whole entire term. It's taken me an awful long time to learn that budget, right? So if we do term limits, unfortunately what we do is we cede the power. I'm the accountable one, and we cede the power to unelected staff. And I have the brochure here, and this is helped put together by all the staff. This is the things that we've done in the last legislative session in case you needed to refer to it. So I have a competent, quality staff. They are not accountable to the voters. I am. But if you have term limits in there, you're going to have legislators that don't know the process, and those staffers are going to get more and more powerful. And I've studied this in other states. In other states, they've determined that the bottom line is they thought they were giving the people more power by putting the legislators on term limits. In fact, they were taking more power away from the people because they were giving it to unaccountable staff that have good hearts, absolutely, but they're not accountable to the voters. So I do challenge legislative term limits, and I'm okay with them on the executive branch because of the differential of power. But I did talk about education as top priority, creating jobs, and I've got a program on that I could talk about, but time is up.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question as a voter?
As a voter?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to ask Todd a question.
Yeah, can we go
And
back
this,
and forth?
this is not,
After you-
it's not designed to, it's a factual question. It's not designed to sling any mud. I want information.
You may ask it after the forum's over.
Okay.
Okay. I think both gentlemen will stay for a few minutes if anybody doesn't get their questions answered.
Yes,
So
sure.
you may do that. Okay, so, Mr. Taylor, should Iowa establish a public bank as has North Dakota?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm open to that idea. Some of my massive campaign contributions have been from credit unions and not banks. Credit unions and banks are kind of in the same business, but they're also kind of opposite one another. And they offer different products and different services. So I would be open to the idea of having another product that's out there that is affordable to people. One of the things I heard in the presidential campaign was, why don't we utilize our post office as, all the clerks have those kiosks where you put your card in there and you can get cash back. Maybe you buy some stamps. Maybe you can get some cash. Maybe you can cash a paycheck. Something like that. Some banking services that would be accessible. They're clearly everywhere, and they could be affordable. So I think we could work with something, and I would be happy to learn more about that. And if it gives credit unions or banks competition, I think that will keep costs down. And if we do that, that helps the consumer. I'm all in favor of that. So I think that we've seen in our system cheaters such as Wells Fargo and what they've done and the whole housing crisis and what's happened there. So to have more competition that's not fee driven, so the lower fees. And I'm just assuming, so my answer is I want an alternative to some of these high fees scenarios, banks and credit unions. And maybe the post office is a venue for that, maybe not.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Cork?
Could you repeat the question?
I sure can. Should Iowa establish a public bank as North Dakota has done? Okay.
Sorry, I was confused with the whole, you use the term bank and credit union interchangeably enough that I was confused. I'm not trying to bash on anybody. My take on it, I've been a member of a credit union for 20 years. And I like the credit unions. My personal take is if you don't like what the banks are doing, look at a credit union. I don't think it's the government's place to get into direct competition with private business.
Okay. All right, Mr. Cork. Let's see. How long before women get paid as much as men in Iowa for doing the same work?
I don't have an answer to that. My magic 8 ball says concentrate and ask again later, I guess. In all seriousness, though, it bothers me that women don't get paid the same amount for the same work. It bothers me. I think it's short-sighted on the part of business. And by the way, I work in a heavy male-dominated industry. I'm in computers, and there's very few women. But you know what? Those women are sharp, and they deserve as much money as I do. I don't have an answer on how that's going to get fixed. I don't have an answer on when that's going to get fixed, because straight up, ladies, you know, you've been fighting that fight longer than I've been around. I'm not going to promise that I can fix it single-handedly.
Okay, Mr. Taylor.
Well, there are some barriers right now because we've tried and we haven't been able to do it. And then part of it, I will lay it at the feet of the governor. He should be a leader in this. He's not. I have fought for equal pay for equal work for women. And, you know, that translates to equal pay for families. Women are a big part of families, obviously. And so it can be a gender issue, but sometimes it hurts families and therefore it hurts children. And so it's something that we should all embrace and try to fix. And we do have some barriers there that are stopping us. I've fought for that several years ago, and I will continue to fight for it. As to when that will happen, I think we need to make some changes on the executive level, and the issue is going to impact families, and so it's something that we need to work on.
Okay. And Mr. Taylor, this one's for you. What role does or should state government have in caring for our veterans?
Absolutely. Our veterans have given their service, their lives in many cases. We need to make sure that they are protected and cared for. And I have some positives and a lot of negatives to say about the Vets Home in Marshalltown. They need to have dignity in their lives and in their later in life. And I think we need to re-emphasize that. And we could improve the lot in their life, particularly let's say in Marshalltown, at the Vets Home. In terms of vets that aren't at that stage of life, I did vote for dedicating a certain amount of money from the lottery, the pull tabs. We set a dollar figure and attach that to the Veterans Trust Fund. The trust fund is designed to help give services. We shouldn't have one single homeless veteran. And a lot of times we need to give the veterans skills to get jobs if that's where they're at in life. I would say that, when we often at the federal level, send people off to war, that's not the end of the commitment that we should make to veterans. It should be a lifelong commitment. And we have a long ways to go, and I would say we could do better.
Thank you. Mr. Cork?
I'm a veteran, so this is near and dear to my heart. But I got to tell you straight up, me and Uncle Sam were square. Uncle Sam gave me a lot more than I gave Uncle Sam. Serving in the Marine Corps was not a burden, it was a privilege. But I'm just speaking for me on that one. We got to take a step back and look at this, though. The military is a federal entity, except for the National Guard. So, can we try to do the right thing for them? Yes. Should we try to do the right thing for them? Yeah. Like I said, these are my brothers and sisters. But I don't think that it is exclusively Iowa's responsibility to take care of Iowa veterans. If you guys are concerned about veterans not being treated well enough, like I said, military members are federal employees. You need to talk to your federal legislators about this.
Okay. We've got two somewhat similar questions, and this is for Mr. Cork. What is your basic philosophy regarding the role of state government, And what are the main responsibilities of state government? Which of those is most neglected in Iowa?
Well, I hope that I've appropriately instilled in you the understanding that I am a firm believer in individual rights, individual responsibilities. And a large portion of the reason that I'm here is that I personally believe both sides of the aisle have been whittling away at our individual rights. I don't want more laws. I want fewer laws. Basically, we're criminalizing too much behavior. We should spend more time and energy allowing our citizens to pursue the rights of life, liberty, and again, the pursuit of happiness. We can't guarantee happiness. It's not government's job. Get out of the way and let the people live.
Okay, Mr. Taylor.
I think I should have you read it again.
Oh, okay. What is your basic philosophy regarding the role of state government? What are the main responsibilities of state government, and which of those is most neglected?
Okay. Well, I think this would be a good time to give this answer to that question. I can't remember the movie, but I can remember the character. Walter Matthau was the character, and he was describing. I think he was a judge in this movie, or certainly a lawyer. But he was talking about the law, and the law should fit you like a well-tailored suit. It should cover all the appropriate areas, and give you a little flexibility where you need the flexibility. And not cover areas it doesn't need to cover. And I thought that was just a really on point to this question, thought. That's kind of my philosophy. As I said in my opening, one of the things I want to do, and I've wanted this since I first decided to run for office 21 years ago, and that was I want to write good legislation, and there's a way to do that. And it does involve often crossing party lines and working with people that have different beliefs than you often. And then I want to unwrite stupid laws. And that's important too, because sometimes when you're in a hurry to do something, or when one party has all the power and they push something through, the law needs to be tweaked down the road. It needs to be changed. Or times change, technology changes, and you need to update the law. So my philosophy is just like that quote. The law should fit you like a well-tailored suit, cover all the areas that needs to cover, give you a little flexibility, and then let's be ready to work together to adjust as needed. And that keeps us busy as legislators.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cork.
Oh, I just answered that one.
Yes, you did.
I'll
Sorry.
answer it again if you'd like me to.
Okay, well, I thank you for reminding me.
I'm a giver.
Okay, Mr. Taylor, are you satisfied with the governance of our universities by the Board of Regents? If not, what changes would you propose?
A number of years ago, there was a regent named Owen Newland, and I didn't know him that well, but I met him a couple of times at a coffee for the regents. And I wanted the regents to do something, and he said, well, I don't know. The regents really shouldn't be politicized. And if we did that, that would politicize us. So his philosophy I liked, and that was we should keep politics out of the regents. Now, unfortunately, and I don't know that this is the point of the question, but my answer goes to saying that Terry Branstad has got it wrong. We have a law on the books right now that you have to balance every board and commission that's out there on a bipartisan, gender balanced way. And the governor right now is taking an approach that he skews that. So he'll say no parties, or so other party, and then Republicans, or some of the people that he appoints to these boards and commissions, particularly the Board of Regents. It is politicized, and it shouldn't be. We probably need to put some more checks and balances on how you get on the board, how long you stay, and how you serve. Because currently the board I'm hating these headlines. The presidents are abusing their flight privileges, or that they're going to raise tuition, and these are things that are going to impact, 84,000 kids this year. And I didn't know that number until I looked it up after we had our meeting at the Gazette on the editorial board thing. But so I think that the current Board of Regents is over politicized, and I'd like them to get out of that. So we might have to change how they serve.
Okay, Mr. Cork?
Well, I'm going to take a quantum leap here and assume that the question about the regents is really not about the regents in and of themselves, but kind of about the college system. Because, if college was affordable to everybody, we wouldn't care as much what the regents did. What's mattering is that the kids are paying exorbitant amounts of money to go to college. And this goes back to the whole personal responsibility thing that I've been talking about. This started back in the 80s. I remember my mom pushing me, boy, you need to go to college. Boy, you need to go to college. Well, okay, Ma, how are you going to get me to college? Oh, we don't have any money. Oh, hey, guess who joined the Marine Corps? But the point is, parents said, if you're going to succeed in life, you have to go to college. And what happened as a result is the laws of supply and demand were skewed. There was a huge increase in demand, therefore the cost went up accordingly. And we bought this thing hook, line, and sinker. We as a society forgot that you don't have to go to college to succeed in life. You can be a plumber, you can be a carpenter, you can be a hairstylist. You don't have to go to college. I don't have a 4-year degree, and I consider myself very successful and very happy as an IT person. There are other alternatives. That's my take on it. We need to take personal responsibility and retrain ourselves.
Okay, thank you. All right, second to the last question. I don't know if this one is a little bit tongue-in-cheek or not. In anticipation of Republicans controlling both the House and the Senate, Governor Branstad was quoted to say, "You ain't seen nothing yet." How do you interpret this?
Wow, it's my turn again?
Yes, it is.
How do I interpret that? Well, I've never met Mr. Branstad, and I have not read that article. So, and I certainly have not heard the rest of it in context. I am not a huge fan of interpreting little sound bites. I'm a big fan of researching a little deeper and finding out what the context is. But if that's the case, I mean, if he was serious about it, from my perspective, that's not a healthy approach. That is a wonderful example of why our political system is where it is today. Democrats and Republicans spend so much time arguing with each other that they don't get around to actually solving the state's problems. And that needs to change.
Okay. Mr. Taylor.
The one thing that Terry Branstad hasn't had for a while is a House and a Senate that's of his same party. I think that would be devastating. I think to interpret his point of you ain't seen nothing yet would mean it's going to be more of the things that I expressed some concerns over. More of how he controls all the boards and commissions and skews them in an anti-bipartisan way, more skewed. And that's just one example. The other parts, I think that he would eliminate collective bargaining. I think collective bargaining is something that he doesn't want. We got it, like I said, in the 70s from his predecessor, Bob Ray, and he would love to gut that. He's talked about that as much and how much he respects and honors Governor Walker for doing that up in Wisconsin. So that bothers me, what he's talking about. No matter what happens in this election, the outcome of the House and the Senate, Governor Branstad has 2 more years. So that's why that statement is particularly concerning to me, because I think he's going to want to try to do things that are maybe on his hit list. I've often thought that look, Tom Vilsack wasn't the greatest guy, but so I'm going to keep referring to him though, because he wasn't bad. One of the things that Vilsack did when he first came into office, the first Democrat after 40 years, was he had to build bridges. And I mean that physically, literally, and theoretically, right? He had to make friends. He had to find out who were some of the people that were going to help him get this idea passed. He wanted smaller class sizes. He's going to have to go over here and make friends. Unfortunately, Terry Branstad, he doesn't have to make any friends. He knows what he wants to do. He knows how to do it. Now, maybe that's because he's been the governor for so long, which I think we should have term limits for the governor. But the bottom line is, I'm not happy. I would not entertain that would be a good comment.
Okay. Last question. Actually, it's two questioners who have asked basically the same question. And this goes to Mr. Taylor. In your opinion, what is the best thing about Iowa? And what will you do to make it even better?
I think the people. And so how do you make it better for the people? And that was part of my opening theme. I want to make Iowa a great place for all. Let's make Iowa a great place to raise a family, to live, work, raise a family, and retire. So I would like the entire continuum to be enhanced. So we have quality education for our kids, and we take care of our seniors, and we take care of a happy life, or the pursuit of a happy life, at all points in between throughout your lives. That's going to require clean water, clean air, good education system, good paying jobs. Our population was quite a bit larger when it was back in the 1900s, and then it's changed a lot. We've migrated towards the cities, but we've got to have the farms. We're unique that way, so we need to maintain our rural culture, our rural heritage, but we also need to make our cities vibrant and draw people in so we don't lose them and we don't have a brain drain. So that's a kind of a function of, working through all the things that impact people from childhood all the way to senior citizens. We have done that in a way. With Iowa being an older state where we have a lot of seniors, one of the things that's interesting I found over the years, and I had served a number of years on the Elder Affairs Board, was that, Iowa's a great place, and I don't care if other people don't know about it, although we don't want to lose our population. And sometimes we can't compete with the sunshine of Florida or the coastline of Texas or whatever. California. But it is a great place. We want to keep our population and grow, make opportunities for people to enjoy their life here as they progress through life.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Cork?
Man, I love Iowa. Like I said, I wasn't born here, but I grew up here. I left and I voluntarily came back. I've been to a half a dozen countries and I've been to half of the states in the nation. I always come back. I love this place. It is because of the people. You know what? People in Iowa are genuine. This is one of the things that I said about Todd early on. Hey, I don't agree with him on everything that he's doing, but I believe that he's coming from a genuine place. I believe that he genuinely wants to do the right thing. Hey, how many politicians can say that outside of Iowa? Not very many, I don't think. And I love the variety of things that there are to do here. You know what? The teenagers, oh, there's nothing to do here. They're wrong. There's the theater, there's movies, there are rivers that just beg to be explored. There's whitewater kayaking in Iowa now. I did it. It's awesome. There's beautiful lakes. There's cornfields that you can get completely lost in. And then at the end of the day, you can come back to town. There's such a cool variety of stuff to do here. You can go out in the country and you can cruise the roads and you can watch out for getting hit by a deer. I mean, hey, it's annoying, but it's also really cool. We get wildlife here. Now, what am I going to do to make it better? I'm going to get out of your way. And I'm going to do everything I can to help the rest of the government get out of your way so you can live, so you can have that liberty, and so you can pursue your happiness.
Okay, thank you. As per the coin toss, Mr. Taylor will go first with his closing statement.
Oh, very good. So I do have some prepared comments here, so I'll just read them to you. I was born in Ames and grew up in Cedar Rapids, went to Taft and went to Jefferson, and our state senator Wally Horn was a teacher of mine, and today he remains a mentor. My wife Kim and I have 2 children, and we want the best education for them, for all of Iowa's children. We need to make education our top priority, and for K-12 I will continue to support preschool education and school readiness, reading recovery, and measuring results against statewide standards with local control and teacher input. In short, the people, parents, and taxpayers, and of course the students, want results. In addition, I would expand early education opportunities through initiatives such as statewide voluntary preschool programs to ensure that the children are ready to learn as they enter kindergarten. Also, I want to create jobs and enhance a strong middle class. We must make childcare more affordable for working families and find a way so that those families can make ends meet and they will not lose our support when they make a slightly better wage. I would raise the minimum wage on a statewide basis, and I'll work to make sure women earn equal pay for equal work. We should focus our state resources on small businesses and startups and entrepreneurs, including those run by minorities and women in our urban centers, so that they can grow and create high-paying jobs. With your help and your vote, I will continue to do my level best to connect workers to skills and skilled workers to jobs, and then jobs to Eastern Iowa. And I hope I can earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Cork?
By now, you probably have figured out that I'm not a big fan of large government. This is going to sound like I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not. I just don't trust the government to know what's right and to do what's best for me. Now, the way that I'm not a pure play libertarian is that I mistrust businesses to watch out for me as much as I distrust the government to have my best interest in heart. So, not being a pure play libertarian, I'm going to work to prevent business and government from taking advantage of the individual. I specifically said that I'd like to get rid of civil asset forfeiture. I specifically said I'd like to effectively get rid of eminent domain. There are places for it. I would like to restore rights to voting rights to felons who've completed their sentence. And I agree with Todd that they need to have their fines paid. I mean, they need to be completed before they get their voting rights back. I actually disagree with capital punishment, but it's primarily on practical grounds. It's just too expensive to execute. I firmly believe in term limits. I firmly support campaign finance reform. And these are things that the government has had the opportunity to do for ages and ages and ages. You've heard it before. I'm going to say it again. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over again and expecting a different result. I think we've reached the point of insanity. I'd like to try something different and get a different result. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to come up with a soundbite. Now, if you guys are going to do it, if you're going to listen to anything soundbite-wise, listen to this one. If you don't like what's going on in the Iowa legislature, put a cork in it.
Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to both of these candidates. I think you probably all feel the same way I do, that you're tired of this election season. And it really takes a lot of effort and time and energy and money, well, in some cases money, to run a campaign for anything, really. And to have people of the quality of these two gentlemen running for this district is really pretty remarkable in this day and age. So I really want to thank you both very much for putting yourselves out there, putting your ideas out there, and being willing to run for a public office, because public service is I think a much maligned job anymore, and yet it is one of the most essential jobs we have in this country, and so we need to have really good people in those positions, and we need to have a system that allows good people to feel okay about running. So thank you very much, both of you. And thank you. Yes. And thank you all for being here. Again, I know there are a lot of conflicts and this wasn't a very good turnout, but you've been most respectful and you've had fabulous questions. They did a really wonderful job of answering the questions. And now it's your turn to go out and vote. If you haven't already, please don't forget. I mean, how could you? Please don't forget to vote. Your vote is extremely important, and it really does make a difference. I'd like to thank Taft School for allowing us to use this lovely facility. And with that, I wish you all safe travels home, and thank you for being here.
So what I wanted to know.
Really, really well done.
Thank you very
Elbow
much.
bump.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to know. Yeah. You know, you've got a valid point. It's good we didn't the appointment process right away.
I'm gonna tell you, maybe 12 years. But part of that was because you don't learn it all at once. That's obvious. Well, put it this way. Well, this goes to something else.